Hi, Ramya. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hi, Manika, and good afternoon, everyone.
Good. We're waiting for the faculty members.
Sure,
They will join one by one.
sure.
Ramya, shall we start? Ramya?
Yeah, sure. We can start now.
Good afternoon, one and all present here. We have organized this workshop in collaboration with Coursera. The topic for today's workshop is blending digital learning into your classroom. As we all know that blended learning is an approach to education that combines online educational material and opportunities for interaction online with traditional place-based classroom method. It requires the physical presence of both teacher and students with some of elements of student control over time and place in order to understand the concept of blended learning. It is a comprehensive manner. We have with us Ms. Ramya Srinivasan from Coursera. She is planning to take the session in 3 parts of half an hour each. Number 1 is intro to blended learning. Second one is blended learning using. Third, tips on online course production. Now, I would like to request Ramya to start the session.
Thanks, Manika, and good afternoon to everybody present. I'd like to start the session firstly by giving a huge round of salute to all of you. As educators, I always had deep respect for the teaching profession, and I think the challenges have become even greater since 2020, and you have done a fabulous job at ensuring that learning doesn't stop. So what I would like to share with you today are just some small ideas and insights. These are things that you probably are already aware of, but it's sometimes good to kind of talk about the blending learning concepts together as a group and see how you can implement this when you go back to your classroom to continue teaching. With that, salute to all of you. I'm going to start the session, like Manika mentioned, in 3 parts. The first one is just an introduction to blended learning. As I start and pull up my slides, it would be nice if you could all share through the chat what is your definition of blended learning, or what are the 2 or 3 words that come to your mind when you think of blended learning. So as I pull up my presentation, please share your thoughts on the chat. I can't see any chats coming. I think all of us need some time to get warmed up, but that's fine. So let's continue. And then as your comments come in, we'll take a look at that. I just wanted to let you know that when I present the screen, I will not be able to see the chat window. So Manika, if there's anything that requires my attention, may I request you
Okay, sure.
Yeah. All right, so let's get started with this first session on Introduction to Blended Learning. Let me also first tell you why I am doing this session. Apart from the fact that I'm the Coursera customer success person dedicated to Assam Downtown University, I also have a deep interest in digital learning, especially from a higher education space. Around 7-8 years back, when MOOCs first kind of hit the higher education industry to Coursera and edX, I started the Digital Learning Center at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, in partnership with edX and then later on with Swayam. So I've interacted with a lot of faculty and helped them create online courses, help them blend it into their in-campus offerings, help them offer these MOOCs on edX and Coursera and all of that. So I have very deep interest in this subject. And it's my pleasure to share all of these insights with you. A lot of the material that I'm sharing with you comes from the teaching and learning department within Coursera. So let's get started with that. In this first half an hour session, we're going to talk about what is blended learning, what are the different blended learning models that have emerged, how do you go about choosing the right blended learning model which makes sense for you at AdtU, and what is the broad scope of blended learning through a platform like Coursera. So let's get started with what is blended learning. Manika gave a really good definition when we started off. And I think the phrases in blended learning that really stand out for me are the fact that they give flexibility to the students. So if you look at this introduction, it says that it's an instructional design strategy. So it allows you to deliver content through a combination of something which is online and something which is face to face, to take the best of both worlds. As educators, I'm sure you all believe that nothing can replace that in classroom interaction that you have with students. I mean, even this particular session, I would have loved for the opportunity to travel and meet you face to face, where we could have had a more interactive session than me just sitting and talking to you about this. So blended marries the best of both worlds. It also allows learners to dig deeper into asynchronous learning while they receive the real-time facilitation from the teacher. So the key word here is that it allows learners to do something. So it kind of shifts the control to the learners, and it makes teachers really, really critical facilitators. So that's a broad context of blended learning. And if you look at the three broad attributes, it is that some learning occurs online, where the student controls the time, the place, and the pace, which is really important. And some learning occurs in the brick and mortar environment. And what is important is the third point. It's not just about giving students something to do online, giving them something to do in class. It's about carving that where both of these can be really connected well. So that this, from the student's perspective, it's a very integrated experience. Unlike us, the students are more amenable to having this kind of a hybrid environment where something is online, something is offline, something is in the class, something is asynchronous, something is synchronous. In their minds, they are able to marry all of these together much more easily, and therefore it's important to design that also so that they get a very integrated learning experience. So what I'd like to convey in these two slides is that blended learning is not about taking pieces of online and doing something offline. It's about crafting an experience and planning that lesson plan so that the students very seamlessly move from one modality to another. If we look at the blended learning models that have emerged over the period of time, and some of these have become even more popular in 2020, when this has been forced both on educators as well as students, there are multiple models, and I've picked three that Coursera sees as being very popular across the world. So one of them is called the flex model. The second one is called a la carte model, and the third one, which most of us have heard over the past decade, is the flipped classroom model. All of these are different nuanced ways of implementing blended learning. We look at the first model, which is the flex model. I'm going to just give 10 seconds for you to read what is there on the screen before I jump in. So in the flex model, there are two key attributes. One is the entire space is set up to give a lot of learner-centric experience. So the entire space is set up such that multiple things can be done within that classroom space that has been created. And second, it is completely student-driven. So there's a lot of control with students. So very clearly, the flex model works best where not only is the learner at a higher degree of maturity, but also at a place where the classroom and the infrastructure is pretty mature in terms of what it can afford and provide. So this model is catching on a lot in the Western world, and it will soon start entering classrooms in India as well. And as you can see for diagram that is there, when you look at the entire classroom space, a student can choose to do any activity. A student can choose to be part of a space where a faculty is conducting a session, what you see at the center, or a student can choose to go into a breakout room and have specific conversations or discussion on a topic, or the student can choose to do a lab work, or the student can choose to do some kind of a collaborative project. So in this case, while the learning experience is really, really high, it also requires a very careful lesson planning on part of the faculty. And it also asks for a lot of resources to be made available within that classroom space. This model is what I feel is slightly more aspirational, but in terms of efficacy, this is probably really high because it kind of covers all different modalities where students can study. The second model is the high flex model or the hybrid flexible model. This is becoming very, very popular in US universities, where students are now given choice. As you can see from point one, it's about the learner choice. The students choose how they want to participate. They can either sit in a class or they can choose to attend the same class via Zoom or Google Meet, or they can choose to see a recording of that session. So a lot of flexibility is given to student. And the reason this kind of a model is being created is for the sake of points 3 and 4, reusability. Because then the same learning experience can be reused again and again because it's a recording which is available. And 4, it is to ensure that students who don't have the same access or the same bandwidth or the same ability to physically travel to a class and sit don't lose out on the learning experience. So taking the flex model into a hybrid model allows us to reach students who don't have the necessary infrastructure to be a part of it. So this is called the high flex model, also catching on a lot in the US universities. And then there is an a la carte model, which I think is right now working best in countries like India, where we want to try out a mix of everything. So what this does is it allows students to either take an online course with a teacher, like what you have been doing with your students via Google Meet or Zoom or Microsoft Teams, where you teach synchronous sessions. It allows them to view a recording that you put up on the LMS, go home and see it as well. It allows them to attend class if the campus or when the campus opens, and also take part in labs. So here it's a mix and match of all possible modalities. And this model is the easiest and most practical to implement. However, it requires a lot of coordination, and sometimes if you don't choose the right modality for the right kind of subject, so for example, if you get students to listen to a lecture where there is not much activity happening, where they could have actually done it in an online, in asynchronously, then you're not taking advantage of the modality well. So while the a la carte model is most prevalent in India and works best because it's extremely flexible, doesn't require too many resources, it also requires very careful planning on part of the teacher to make sure that their learning experience is not reduced for the students. Flipped classroom doesn't actually need much explanation. All of you know what it is. It's being tried right from primary, secondary, and high schools all the way up to college, where students do the coursework at home and then they use the classroom time to actually solve problems and to do a lot of hands-on learning and discussion-oriented sessions. So at this point, we just covered briefly what the different models of blended learning are, and I'll be sharing these slides. This is a very text-heavy slide, so I don't want to, waste time reading it out. I'll be sharing the slides with you, and you can read it later. But what this does is basically tells you what are the three main models, how you can use them, what are the challenges, and what are the opportunities in each. And all of these are aligned towards blended learning. If you take a very a specific example of saying, I'm used to teaching my lesson in this particular way in class, and therefore when I move online, I will continue to do the exact same thing, except instead of standing at the lectern in the classroom, I will sit down in front of my laptop and webcam. So instead of just translating exactly what's done in the physical classroom into the virtual classroom, there are three basic points that you can consider in order to flip this classroom and make it a little more blended and virtual. So the first point talks about starting with what you want to accomplish during the face-to-face class session. So instead of looking at how you conduct the face-to-face class and therefore how you should conduct the online class, look at what you want to achieve through the face-to-face class, and therefore how can those learning objectives be achieved in the online mode. And based on that, design your in-class activities. So for example, if during the face-to-face class, you spend the first half an hour explaining 5 concepts, and then if it's a B school class, then you will spend the next half an hour having a discussion or a role play or giving them a pop quiz, then one way to do it is to say, I want them to understand these 5 concepts. Therefore, on day 1, I'll share with them 5 videos that help explain those 5 concepts. Let them watch those 5 videos. On day 2, I will conduct a synchronous online activity to replicate that same discussion. So look at what you want to accomplish during the face-to-face class and then design your activities, saying which of these activities can students do by themselves, which of these can they do with their peers, and for which of these do they need me as the educator, to which of these do they need me as the expert to come and facilitate, and then start bifurcating those activities into what they can do asynchronously online by themselves and which of them you need to facilitate in a synchronous classroom or online session, and then integrate these two. So when you take these very basic concepts and understanding and see how can I choose the right blended learning model, I would encourage you to ask yourself 6 questions. First is, remember, blended learning shifts the ownership to the student. So how much ownership do I want my students to have over their learning? Second one is, what do I want the instructor's role to be? What am I best placed at doing? The third is, what type of access do these students have? What type of access do I have as a teacher as well? The fourth is, how much of what I teach, how much of the learning objectives can be achieved through self-directed learning versus how much of these require an engagement, because that will help you split between asynchronous and synchronous. And then finally, what space do I have to support face-to-face time? So you need to look at the learning objectives, the material that is being taught, as well as the resources you have at hand in order to choose the blended learning model that best suits both AdtU, your students, and your specific subject. And of course, I will not make the mistake of explaining Bloom's taxonomy to a teacher. But what this slide basically says is that once you've made all those decisions and you have a high level plan of how you want to flip your classroom or how you want to incorporate blended learning, you can even think about using Bloom's taxonomy at different levels. A very, very straightforward way of doing this is to say that the lowest orders, the remembering and understanding, can be done online, because this is self-directed learning. The analyzing and applying can be done through synchronous sessions between the teacher and the student, because they require higher order thinking skills. The evaluation and creating can be done both asynchronously online by students by asking them to do assessments, by asking them to do group projects, as well as synchronously by creating more collaborative spaces. So the Bloom's taxonomy, when you apply it to your blended learning model, also reinforces that you have chosen an effective pedagogical strategy to create that blended learning experience. And the reason why we are talking about blended learning and making sure that they align with Bloom's taxonomy, making sure they align with the learning outcomes, is because blended learning has proven to be more effective. Students typically thrive and learn better when they are given choice, control, challenge, and collaborative opportunities. And blended learning allows you to offer all of these 4 things to them. The choice of what to study, and when to study. The control over what medium do I use, how fast do I study, how slowly do I pace myself, things like that. The challenge of doing problems online, competing with peers, and making sure that they complete all the assessments and evaluations on time and score good marks, and the collaborative opportunity, of course, that the online medium throws up through discussion forum, through peer reviews, and things like that. So when you combine online with offline, it clearly gives students greater chance of succeeding. And this has been shown very, very recently in 2020. And I picked up the statistics that you see on the left from two studies that were done. The first one was one which was done in the US during the pandemic lockdown between March and October, where students were forced to move online. And they found that the student satisfaction with the entire learning experience doubled when faculty incorporated 6 to 8 features of blended learning instruction. The second one was very, very interesting because it took blended learning and online learning into a space that we have traditionally thought of as only being possible face to face in design. So 70% of the bachelors of design in a specific university said that they would opt in for an online mode again if given the opportunity. So both of these statistics clearly show that blended learning as a principle, though it has been around in higher education for a long time, has actually started making inroads into academia, and students have started accepting it, and students really thrive in such a scenario. And therefore, it's very important for you as faculty to now start designing blended learning instead of just trying it out in whichever way is most feasible. It's now time to actually apply all the pedagogy that you know into designing the right blended learning experience. And all of these solutions, all of this designing is possible on Coursera. I'll just give you some brief examples. So for example, if you're taking the flex model, if you recall, the flex model allows students to do multiple things at a time. They could watch a few videos which you can pick from Coursera courses. They could have a discussion which you could do on the discussion forum. They could go to a lab which you can do through Coursera's guided projects and virtual lab experiences. And so on. So the flex model, where students can select to do specific activities while in class, can be facilitated by picking up the right elements and resources from the Coursera course. If you're choosing the a la carte model, this is something that already is being done at the School of Management and the School of Social Sciences at Assam Downtown University, which is to say that I augment my existing courses with some online asynchronous material from Coursera. So while students are learning face to face from the faculty, they also pick up specific modules from a Coursera course and complete it by themselves. And the Coursera for Campus offering, which is there with AdtU, has allowed faculty to identify specific courses. So, for example, the business school faculty have picked up courses in digital marketing, in Excel, in negotiation, integrated marketing, strategy, etc., saying in all of these courses, you will complete 1 credit from the Coursera course, and the rest I will teach face-to-face in class. So the a la carte model can be very easily implemented through Coursera for Campus, as can flipped classroom. Coursera is ideally placed for this flipped classroom method as well, because you can ask them to view all the video lectures and concepts and readings on the Coursera content, and then come to class for a flipped classroom discussion. And of course, I say Coursera, but it can be broadly extended to other MOOC platforms as well. In fact, the flipped classroom was very successfully implemented when I was at IIM Bangalore. And at that point of time, the institute was on edX, so they were using the edX MOOC. And there was this finance professor, Professor P.C. Narayan, who had a MOOC on Introduction to Banking and Financial Markets. So he would ask his students, he used the blended learning model, he would ask his students to watch a specific module on his MOOC before coming to class. As soon as he entered the class, because now this was the time, if you go back to the Bloom's taxonomy. He made sure that they went through the online module and were able to remember the concept and understood it. Then he would conduct in class the applying and analyzing part, where what he would do is he would first do a pop quiz to make sure that they remembered everything. After that, he circulated a newspaper article. Since he was a financial markets professor, he had circulated an article by the then RBI governor, Dr. Raghuram Rajan, which spoke about the IRR, internal rate of return. And then he asked the students specific questions to make sure that they were able to apply those concepts, and then asked them to discuss, was the RBI governor's recommendation good or bad for the market? So he asked them to analyze it. So what happened was, because he had outsourced the learning material of the concepts to the MOOC, he was able to spend greater time in class on the higher order thinking skills. So this was very well executed in the flipped classroom and blended learning method by this professor, and it can easily be extended to all the subjects as well. And you can do this through MOOC platforms like Coursera. So that brings me to the end of the session. Thankfully on time. I have done it in half an hour. I'm going to stop sharing and go back and see if people have any comments to make. Please feel free to unmute yourself and share any thoughts on, have you tried? So Fred, let me ask you a question. Have you tried any kind of blended learning in your classroom? What's been your challenge? What has worked? What has not? Anybody? Shravani, I know, has mentioned something about blended learning being a combination of digital and offline, which is perfectly right. Shravani, have you tried this or you plan to try this in an upcoming session of yours?
I've actually tried blended learning, and I feel that when the students they go through the videos, as well as they go through additional references from the internet, we can then on the next day come back and have a much richer and detailed discussion. So I think that it's a really good form of blended learning, the flipped classroom method. So yeah, it's a good one.
And where do you get your videos from? Do you get them? Do you create them yourself, or do you get them from other online courses or MOOC platforms?
I do have some pre-recorded videos which I send it out to the students before they come for the class, and that way they come prepared for the class, what to expect. So then I also include case studies, because when you do clinical psychology you need to discuss clinical studies,
Right.
so that's when they have a good discussion during the class.
Awesome. Very nice. Anybody else would like to share? Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are each of you in trying out blended learning in your classroom? Please share on the chat window. On a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you to try out blended learning? Nice. I think most of you are pretty comfortable trying it out, which is really good news, because, like I said, as a concept, I think there is a greater acceptance of blended learning today than there was 5 years ago. And therefore, the level of expectation in terms of how you do the blended learning is even greater. It's no longer very, very simple, where you just give them things to do and then you don't have to integrate the online offline experience. There's a lot of design that needs to go in as well. So I'm glad to see all of these really high confidence levels in using blended learning. And I hope that what we share in the upcoming two sessions will help you design it better. Right? So thank you, everybody. We will now move on to the second session, the second part of the session, which talks more about how can you use Coursera for blended learning. There are some of you in this room who are already using it, thanks to Coursera for Campus. And please feel free to kind of share your thoughts as I speak. This is a very informal session, so please feel free to share your thoughts as I speak on how you are doing it, what is not working, what is working, and so on. So in this session, which is about blended learning using Coursera, I'll give a very brief introduction to Coursera for Campus for those of you who are not aware, and then talk about the very simple 5-step approach on how you can do blended learning using Coursera. Coursera for Campus, although Coursera has been around since 2012, Coursera for Campus, where we partner with universities like AdtU to prepare your students for jobs of the future, is a more recent offering. It's just a little more than a year old. It started in October 2019. And what it offers is not just content. So Coursera offers content, it offers online courses, but Coursera for Campus has many more elements apart from that content. What it also does is it respects the fact that we are now partnering with universities which already has experts in the form of their own faculty. So what it then does is it kind of propagates the entire blended learning philosophy and says, in addition to the world-class job relevant content that we have on our platform, like Coursera, we're also allowing faculty to create their own projects, assessments, and courses for their students through what we call private authoring. So you can create your own content. It also focuses on helping students apply their learnings through a lot of hands-on learning experiences that are offered through a concept called guided projects. For those of you who haven't experienced guided projects on Coursera, these are short 1 to 2 hour long experiences where an instructor, typically a subject matter expert from an industry, takes a very real world like problem and guides students step by step through the tasks needed to complete a small mini project. So this could be creating a dashboard using Tableau or Google Slides. It could be about creating a programming IBM Watson. It could be about cleaning up a specific data set. It could be about writing a short piece of R code. It could be more behavioral and business oriented, about creating a PESTLE framework and things like that. So it allows students to master the concepts that they have learned both from Coursera and from their own faculty and actually apply those concepts. And underlying all of this on Coursera, if you notice, every course of ours is internally tied into some job ready skills. So by learning on Coursera for Campus, you as faculty can actually say, I want to give my students these 3 skills, and therefore I will give them these particular courses. So everything in Coursera has an underlying taxonomy of job-ready skills, and you can actually measure them using things like our essential skills map and our skills development dashboard, which tells you that along the 3 key domains of business, data science, and computer science, which are the specific skills and competencies that your students are at a beginner level, and which are the ones where the students are now at an advanced level. And you can actually see that moving. And given that AdtU is so placements driven, this kind of mapping courses to skills, what we call skillifying any academic content, becomes very, very relevant as students start appearing for placements. And then finally, all of this is powered by a very scalable platform. There is an entire admin portal that some of you in this room have seen, which allows you to actually measure how much students are learning, what are they learning, where are they stuck, what skills have they acquired, and things like that. So there's a lot of powerful analytics. There's a lot of power which is given to the faculty to create their own content and for students to do a lot of hands-on learning, which is available through this entire package that we call Coursera for Campus. And because of these 5 elements, it is very, very clearly aligned with multiple use cases that lend themselves to blended learning. The most popular use cases are, of course, for credit learning, which is prevalent in AdtU. They're also being used for a lot of executive programs where universities offer professional development courses through Coursera. So if you look at the existing university ecosystem right at the bottom here, when we take Coursera for Campus into this university ecosystem, a lot of care is given to make sure that it fits in and doesn't like stand as 2 parallel tracks. So a lot of care is ensured to blend it into the university context and to create a blended learning experience. So if you take what a blended learning experience is from our previous session, we spoke about giving students a conceptual understanding through the Coursera courses, allowing them to do a lot of application through guided projects, allowing them to get a blended online, offline experience through the content that you yourselves create, and making sure that everything is measured through assignments, through assessments, some assessments on Coursera, some assessments through the university itself. And when all of this come together, that's when you have a very integrated blended learning experience that Coursera can help you create. If you look at the very simple 5-step approach, right? Coursera for Campus is there at Assam Downtown University. And once again, I'm saying Coursera, but you can look at any such platform. And there are 5 things that you need to do in order to very thoughtfully design the blended learning experience. The first one is to say that this is the kind of strategy I'm going to use. I have a set of online resources. In this case, I have Coursera MOOCs from Coursera for Campus. What is the academic integration model I'm going to use to blend it into my existing syllabus, into my existing lesson plan, into my existing curriculum? You have to decide the strategy first. The second step is to say that now I know that at a high level, how does a Coursera course fit into my existing regulation and curriculum system? You then say, this is the best Coursera course that I want to right now choose to add to my curriculum. The third step is to ensure that you have the right assessment strategy. What assessment is done on Coursera? What assessment is done by you? And then create a very simple blended methodology or a blended lesson plan to make sure that these two are integrated, so that when a student learns on Coursera, it gets very seamlessly integrated with what you are teaching in class. And then finally, build and deliver the online course, and you can use Coursera platform to do that. Let's look at what each of these steps entails. The first step, like I mentioned, is to strategize on the academic integration model. When Coursera for Campus partners with hundreds of universities around the world, different universities choose different models. Some choose a for-credit implementation, some choose a not-for-credit implementation, though we have seen most success when Coursera is blended for credit. Some say that, look, I want students to learn X subjects directly through Coursera. I am not blending anything. They will just learn on Coursera and that's it. The others who have the resource to do a blended learning, they step in and say that I will do blended learning using Coursera. Right? So if you look at the for-credit use cases, there's something called a standalone, where the Coursera course is provided as a standalone course, saying that in addition to the in-campus courses, students can do these additional courses on Coursera. And then there is the other extreme that says that students can just learn whatever they want on Coursera. There is no credit attached to it. This is just an opportunity for them. The one we are most focused on today is on how you can use Coursera for blended learning as part of a for-credit course. In this case, what happens is, Please look at the first row that I've highlighted in cream background, which is to say it's a blended course, can be used both for core and elective, where the teaching, the content and teaching comes both from faculty and from Coursera, like Shravani explained. The credits, a partial credit comes from Coursera, and the rest of the concepts are covered in class. So also the assessments. There is an X% weight that is given to the Coursera grade, and the remaining is done through an offline exam. In some cases, we've seen that the faculty say that unless you complete the Coursera course and show me your certificate, I will not give you the hall ticket to appear for the in-campus examination. So there are multiple modes. So this is the overall strategy that you need to decide first as a specific department or as a university as a whole, saying that when we adopt Coursera, this is the way we're going to do it. So for example, at the School of Management, I don't know if anybody is in this room from the School of Management, but what they have done is every semester, students cover 3 courses worth 3 credits from Coursera. And these courses have been identified in those areas where the faculty wants students to develop a specific skill set, and they're not teaching it right now as part of their in-campus teaching. And in terms of assessment, there is some percentage of weight given to the Coursera grade, and the remaining comes from Viva votes that the faculty themselves conduct. So that's the academic integration model, which you have to decide at a not at an individual level, but at a department or at a university level. Once that is decided, and you know that for every in-campus course of mine, I'm going to have 1 Coursera course, or I'm going to get a collection of 2 or 3 Coursera courses. That's when you go on to the actual curation process, where you identify which is the best Coursera course that fits your strategy, that fits your learning outcomes. That's step 2. And for this, at least with platforms like Coursera for Campus, we work with you to help you identify the right course. So based on how you want to use Coursera, do you want to use Coursera to kind of be blended into your course and therefore replace part of your own teaching hours? Or do you want to use Coursera to add a new element or a new dimension to an existing course? Based on those requirements, we look at your curriculum and structure and curate a list of courses that will suit your curriculum. In the third step, you will then, as faculty, review and refine that, and then finally decide these are the 2 courses I'm going to use in my syllabus. So once those courses are identified, this is how it looks, right? Both in core, and here you see examples of engineering, as well as in electives, and here are some examples from management. So for example, if you are teaching a financial services elective in the School of Management, then you can say that in my financial services, introductory financial services elective, I want to give students the opportunity to be exposed to blockchain. And therefore, I will give them 2 courses to complete, which is the blockchain transformations of financial services and a finance industry transformation and regulation from a fintech perspective. So I will give them these 2 courses worth 2 credits, and then the remaining teaching I will do, and I therefore will be blending Coursera courses into mine. If you are an engineering professor and you're teaching automation systems, what you can do is you can ask students to complete a course on automating real-world tasks with Python or a converter control course, and then add those specific modules to your own course and saying these 2 courses come from Coursera, the remaining teaching is done by me. So there are lots of options for you to decide what courses you want to take from Coursera and how you want to offer them as blended learning in your own classrooms. The third step, like I explained earlier, is about deciding the assessment strategy. You're all aware that at the end of the day, you have to conduct an exam and you have to give them some kind of a score. So if you're blending, then you can use multiple options on what you want to do with the grade you get from Coursera. One option is to say that everything comes from Coursera. One option is to say that nothing comes from Coursera in terms of the grades, and I will do an offline exam. A third option, which is most popular, is to do a weighted grade where you say X% comes from Coursera and 100 minus X comes from the university exam. In addition, there is a fourth option where you can also create online assessments that you can build on the Coursera for Campus platform and offer it to students to complete along with the MOOC. And what you get on the platform itself is a whole lot of data. Like I said, it's a scalable edge tech platform. And therefore, if you want to take the gradebook from Coursera, you will get a lot of detail. You will get it at a single course to student level. You can get it at a program level, at an organization level. And you will find in that gradebook grades for every course, every attempt for every single question. So you will get a lot of detail on that particular grade book, and you can use that to assign grades for the Coursera course. And given that academic integrity is very important, there's also Turnitin integration should you choose to switch it on. So this is the kind of information you get. I know it's very fine print, but basically what it does is this specific learner in the course called AI for Everyone, in the specific lesson called What is AI, and in the specific question number 1 of the week 1 quiz, this is how much he or she scored. So that level of detail is available for you with Coursera, and you can choose to use that information to build your final assessment strategy. So now that you know how you want to blend, which course you want to blend, and how you want to grade the student for it, you can then decide the final blending, the blended grading scheme that you want, completely your decision. How many credits come from Coursera? Think about it, how much weight you want to give. Do you want to conduct a proctored university final exam? Do you want to create your own inline online tests and projects? And how do you want to combine all of it to create a grading scheme? Once you've decided all of that, then comes an interesting pedagogical exercise, which is to say, now that I know these are the courses that I want to blend, or these are the modules I want to blend, how do I go about doing it? It's either a flipped classroom method or an a la carte method that we discussed in the first session. Now both of these sessions come together, and then you look at what's your blended learning approach. And a very, very simple starting point is something that I got from a blend kit framework that was published by the University of Central Florida, which is to say, create a mix map. This is the first starting point. If you're starting from a blank slate, look at your course, you know which are the Coursera courses you want to add, and say which components of my course comes from Coursera, which components will I drive, which is faculty-led, and which components will be from both. And how this looks like, it's this. So for example, you can say that I will take one entire course from Coursera and give it 70% weight. I will do the assessment partially from Coursera and partially with the university exam. And in addition to that course content which is there on Coursera, I will conduct one case study discussion. I will do 2 tests. I will also hold one virtual office hour at the end of every week to discuss that particular concept, and I might do a guided project as well. So you need to create this mix map to make sure that everything is a seamless experience. So you create this kind of an integration between which is your course, which is the online Coursera course that maps to your course, what's a grading scheme, and how will you integrate the faculty-led and online components. This is not gone into much detail, what I'm showing you on screen, but here is an example. This is an example from an Essentials of Marketing course. Now, the course that is taught is the Essentials of Marketing course, and there are 2 Coursera courses that have been mapped or that are being blended into this course. The first one is a Marketing in a Digital World by University of Illinois, and the second is a guided project titled Increase SEO Traffic with WordPress. So as a teacher, I have decided that a part of my teaching, especially the digital marketing module from my Essentials of Marketing course, comes entirely from Coursera, And to make sure that they understand the SEO space, I've asked my students to do a guided project. While the rest of the teaching of this course is done by me as the faculty. There is also a grading scheme which takes 30% weight from Coursera and the rest through internal assessments and final exam. Now, what I will do to make sure that students are not left alone with the Coursera courses, I will do an integration. So, an example is to say that as soon as students finish 2 modules of the Coursera course, I will conduct one online a virtual Zoom session to kind of reiterate and refresh the theory. I will also do a case discussion on a digital marketing case that was done, and I will do it in between the Coursera course in week 2 or week 3. And I will also do 3 virtual office hours during the Coursera course to resolve doubts. So there are multiple blended approaches. Here's another example from an engineering course. In this case, you can also create your own guided projects. So if you look at the last column, which talks about integration between in-class and online components, you can also use simulation tools that are available to create a guided project yourself and allow students to get some hands-on learning through that guided project. Once again, you are all best suited to create a detailed plan. But what I wanted to convey is this is a very simple task when you're starting from a blank slate. To first create the mix map and then to create a high-level blended approach. Once you start doing this, then your lesson plans will become clearer in terms of aaj bachon ne ye kiya Coursera pe, so therefore online ke class mein I will do this particular thing to kind of make sure that they have studied everything on Coursera, for instance, like what Shravani was explaining. So it's important to create the mix map, the blended approach, and then translate it into a specific lesson plan for each of your modules. And finally, when you look at what's coming from Coursera, what's coming through your live teaching sessions, it's also good to create your own digital content. As all of you have started doing, some of you are recording your Zoom sessions and then putting it up on the LMS. But a great way to contextualize learning for students is when you create your own digital content, which is what the next session will focus on, where I share a few best practices on how Coursera supports our university partners in creating the public MOOCs that you have seen. So I'll take a pause once again for any Q&A or any thoughts that folk might have. So how many of you have experimented with actually creating your own content in addition to using digital resources or open educational resources that you have seen and shared with your faculty, with your students? So the question is, have you created your own digital content for your courses? You can answer with a yes, no. It worked, it was tough, it was great, it wasn't nice, whatever. One of the comments that I've often heard from faculty that I've worked with is like, I hate to look at myself on the screen. Some others would write a script and then they would read it off a teleprompter and they say, this is not how I sound. So we would take the teleprompter away and then they would say, no, but I've forgotten my lines. So it's a very difficult balance to keep. There was one trick which one of my faculty members used, and that was to place their student behind the camera. And they would say, tum jaake wahan khade ho jao and you will be my student. And I will look at the student and talk instead of looking at the camera and talk.
And it was challenging at the beginning for Papia.
Yeah. It was challenging at the beginning, meaning now it's fine. So what worked for you? What trick worked for you? And you can unmute yourself and share as well. You don't have to put it on chat.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Papia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, audible.
actually, at first, since we at a very abrupt position, we changed from
Yeah.
offline to online. It was very challenging, but now there are no other ways, and we have actually gone through some online ways. I have seen through YouTube's how you can convert a classroom into a digital classroom.
Mhm.
So that helped me a lot, Dishan, because nowadays everyone is using it, and there are experienced people who have been using it from right before corona days have come. So those helped, and a lot of practice was also used in this process. But now somehow we have come at age with the students as well as, and it was a lot challenging for the students on that side also. So what happened was, now the students can, if you explain something, they can come to the point, they can understand. So it's a very good experience, it's a new experience. And this is how adversity is the mother of invention, or everything
Right.
comes into the existence. Thank you.
Thanks, Papia. Anybody else has recorded videos and uploaded them for students to look at before they attend your class? I know you all record your live sessions, but have you recorded content to be consumed by students asynchronously?
Faculty members, please reply.
Maybe I should do things that you do in the classroom, which is to do cold calling. Anybody who wants to share if they have been recording their own videos? I think Mr. Partha Pratim Datta, you want to say something because I saw your video come live.
He says
Please,
yes.
Yeah, I record, madam.
we can hear you.
Yeah, I do, madam.
So you record your videos. How do you do it? Do you do it on your laptop? Do you have a setup in campus?
Actually, I recently joined. I am also new to this system only. Uh, uh, I in my live classes, I took the help of the lab assistants sometimes
Mm.
to record my practical classes.
Oh, nice,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, I did it for my diploma classes practical.
Okay. Well, what subject do you teach, sir?
I teach for diploma hospital and clinical pharmacy for
Nice.
yeah, diploma, and in M-Pharm, its offline classes are going on, so recording is not yet done.
Okay. Of course, I mean, these are subject areas where the what digital can afford is much more limited in terms of hands-on learning. So therefore, it's all the more important for you to make sure all the concepts are taught online so that you can use whatever limited classroom time or lab time you have with your students to make sure they get some hands-on practice. But of course, engineering, management, and design kind of subjects are more amenable to be taught fully online, whereas medical sciences, life sciences, allied healthcare subjects have to have very, very serious blended learning so that students don't lose out on some of the hands-on experiences. Okay, so let's move on to the final part of the session, which is about some practical, simple tips on online course production. So these tips come to you from the Teaching and Learning Services at Coursera. And in this session, I'll share with you what's Coursera's high-level educational philosophy and pedagogy, and some best practices that we have on video production, assessments, and learner engagement in an online course. So if you first look at the educational philosophy at Coursera, you will find that the instructional material comes third. What comes first is what is the skill we want to impart to students. How will you test whether they have mastered that skill? And then third, what is the instruction needed to teach that skill? So this is known as the backward learning design. And therefore, Mapping with all of this, we first start with what is the learning objective, what are the assessments, and what are the instruction, and make sure this is in a loop. So just because a student goes through an instruction doesn't mean he or she progresses. He or she progresses only if he or she is able to complete the assessments and prove that he or she has understood or accomplished the learning objective. And until that happens, it goes in a loop, which means the students are given infinite attempts to complete a particular assessment, and they are constantly given feedback on where they have gone wrong and how they can rectify it. So it's based on this feedback mechanism that we do mastery learning pedagogy on all our courses, and this is implemented through a backwards design. So when a faculty at one of our university partners decides to create an online course, they'll always begin with the end in mind, which is to say, by the end of this course, my students will be able to do A, B, and C. And I will test A, B, and C through these assessments, which are both formative and summative. And in order for my students to be able to complete these assessments, they need this kind of instructional item: videos, readings, any lab work which should be there, any third party online learning tools through LTIs, etc. So that's a backwards design for us. And this backwards design translates into such a content structure. So if you look at a course, it has multiple modules. Each module is typically aligned with one or two learning objectives that had been identified. And to achieve that learning objective, each module has multiple lessons. Each lesson teaches one concept or two concepts at max, and these concepts have a assessment at the end of it, along with instructional material in the form of videos and readings. So there are practice assessments to make sure that before, as a learner, I come to the final graded assessment, I have had enough practice on the individual lessons to make sure that the graded quiz I am able to perform well. That is the broad structure of any online course at Coursera. And this screenshot shows you how this can be created in our platform. And as Coursera for Campus partners, some of you already have access, or we can enable access to do this kind of authoring on the Coursera platform. We call it private authoring, where you create a similar structure for your own course and give it to your own students at AdtU. So it's for a private instance. It's just you and your students. So you can create such a backwards design online course through private authoring on Coursera. You can also create guided projects, and this is how it looks, where you will give an instruction and students can pause your video and replicate those instructions side by side in a virtual desktop environment. So when you take this mastery pedagogy and the backwards design concept, and you look at how do I create all of these course design elements, there is a specific checklist, a high-level checklist that we recommend. The first thing is to identify who the learner is and what are his or her objectives. And in the context of AdtU, what this means is this an undergrad student, postgrad students, because the level of maturity and discipline are very different. Is this student more focused on completing the course and getting a specific grade? Is this a final year student and therefore is looking for something related to placements that he or she can showcase? Is this a student, an engineering student who doesn't have much access? So identify that learner persona and identify why the student is taking up the course. Use a backwards design to actually develop your curriculum starting from the learning objectives, and develop an assessment plan. In an online course environment, the assessments are very, very important. So make sure that the assessments are not, kind of slapped on as just something that you need to do, but really thought through with enough feedback built into it. So on Coursera, if you look at any quiz, if a student gets it wrong, he or she also gets a message on why that answer is wrong and where you can go and look in order to get the right answer, saying, point them to the right video, saying, view this video again and then come and attempt this quiz question. Based on all of that, put together that instruction material, Make sure you plan enough of a discussion forum intervention, because like I said, choice, control, challenge, and collaboration, all these four elements are very important to students in order to thrive in that online course. So these five things need to be thought through when you are doing your high level course design. Let's look at the most, what is perceived. Let me say what's perceived as the most important and also possibly the toughest element of this entire course design, which is the video. How do you choose the right video style that's aligned with what you want to teach and that also works within whatever is the infrastructure or budget available to you? Another point to note is that use videos only where other modes don't work, where readings or infographics are not going to help, because videos are not only expensive in terms of time and money to produce, they're also expensive to maintain. You can't go back and edit a video as easily as you can edit an infographic or an LTI component, for instance. Based on our experience, we've identified different types of instructional videos, and each of them have their own use case. The first one is the most popular one, which is a talking head one, where it's a lecture style video, typically used as voice over PPT also. This can be combined with a green screen in a studio environment for more creative illustration. So what you see here is an example. So this is an example of a talking head that has been shot against a green screen, and all of these visual elements have been added later for a creative illustration. The next example is that of a demonstration, like you just mentioned, Dr. Datta, where you record a demonstration. This can either be done actually in a physical environment, or it can be a demo that you do online through an annotated PowerPoint or through a screen capture if it's a software. Or a more popular one is also what's called the learning glass or the light glass example, which is done using a glass and a mirror combination and using special markers where you write on it as though it's a transparent board. So what you see here is an example of a light board. See. So this faculty is actually writing on a glass, and his video is recorded by capturing his reflection on a mirror. So this is a very, very interesting and effective way of allowing students to make eye contact with the faculty whilst the faculty is writing on a blackboard. So it gives them a very clear classroom feel, and it's also effective when you're demonstrating subjects in engineering or maths. And for those of you who are very comfortable teaching through a whiteboard or a blackboard, this is called the learning glass. The third one, which I think is great because it allows you to give students a real world context by doing an on location video, which you cannot do in a classroom. This is used when you are able to go on location and shoot. So for example, you're teaching something on production shop floor management. You actually take them to a factory and let them see all of this. In this particular case, it's about nature-based solutions. And what you can see is that this has been shot at the location of a project which deals with nature-based solutions. So they're able to actually show all of this in an on-location video, which works much better than lecturing from a classroom. The fourth example is also what you try to do through guest lectures in campus, but now because of the online medium, it's even more easier for you to get outside or expert perspectives by shooting an interview video and then sharing it with your students. So in this comes from one of the Coursera MOOCs where there was an interview with Dr. Martin Seligman. So as you can see here, the faculty gave an overview and then let them listen right from the horse's mouth, from the main researcher. So the interview allows students to not only hear from you as faculty, but also to actually hear from the source of the knowledge or from industry practitioners. Another type is the animation type, which is really well suited for any kind of storytelling that you wish to do. Expensive to produce, but really, really effective. I mean, who doesn't love stories? So there are different types of instructional videos, and each of them has a specific purpose or is best suited for a specific type of a use case. And you can choose one or the other or a mix of all of these depending upon what infrastructure you have access to and what kind of subject you are teaching. When you're creating all of these videos, the script matters. So make sure that when you before you record the video, you write down a script where you're introducing the goals of the video, making sure that the videos are between 3 to 7 minutes, ideally not more than 5 or 6. Start with the hook so that the student gets immediately interested or curious. Give a specific title to the video so that the student knows what to expect in the video. Be as conversational as you can. These are small nuances that matter within the script. So please use first and second person, I, you, we, so that it appears that you're talking to the student instead of making it a very passive expression within your script. A lot of body language and emotion. Learn to speak to the camera and use lots of examples for storytelling. A typical speed is 150 words per minute. So a typical video will have around, say, 8 to 10,000 words in that particular script. And then when you are editing the video, make sure you are able to incorporate any kinds of in-video quizzes at the end of the second minute, third minute, fourth minute, and also use a green screen like I had shown earlier to incorporate visual elements so that this is just a little more engaging for the students as they watch it. When it comes to the course assessments themselves, pretty straightforward. Have enough formative assessments in every module and give students unlimited attempts, sufficient feedback so that they are able to use it as practice quizzes. These should be very short and focus on a specific concept. The summative, on the other hand, is one broad summative assessment per module, has a larger scope, and is generally mapped to a module level learning objective. On Coursera, you can use a variety of mechanisms for all of these assessments and feedbacks. And good courses have a mixture of all of these. So there are in-video questions, there are discussion prompts. So discussion prompts are great because you can start a discussion thread in an online course and then carry that discussion in your in-class environment. So it's a great way to do a blending there. Quizzes, both within the online course as well as create pop quizzes in class. Peer review allows students to do a lot of collaborative thinking and technical assessment. So when you're designing the course, make sure you put in all of these elements wherever feasible. Learner engagement is very difficult in an online course. The one complaint I have received I've heard about MOOCs from every person I've spoken to is the high dropout rates and the low completion rates. And the reason that happens is because of the course not having been designed well, not having been delivered well. So in order for learner engagement, there is a lot of nudging that you need to do. So you need to create something like a nudge framework for your courses. Some of them are synchronous, which you will offer to the students to gently nudge them along as they're doing the course. And some of them are asynchronous that are already built into your course design. You should be able to use the learning analytics that you have to identify where are learners stuck. Are they stuck in a particular video? X% of the learners are stuck here. So let me send out a message and nudge them along. Or let me do an office hours to clarify doubts. And then use blended learning to make sure that with that online offline mix, the student is kind of motivated to succeed. Some learner engagement ideas that are pretty popular in the online courses are discussion forum has to be moderated. It's found that courses where the online discussion forum is moderated personally by the faculty have higher completion rates. Create a messaging calendar and schedule regular messages. You can, in fact, fill up a calendar and let it go on autopilot, where students will get these messages at the end of week 1, week 2, week 3, and so on. In addition, do a lot of blending by holding your own office hours, use quizzes in your classrooms, and adopt blended learning overall with the Coursera modes to have higher learner engagement. So with that, we come to the end of this session where we spoke about the educational philosophy, course videos, course assessments, and learner engagement, and how important it is to take that entire blended learning strategy that we spoke about in the first session, to take those 5 steps to create a blended lesson plan in the second session, and then create those individual elements of your lesson plan for high learner engagement. So with that, we come to the end of the session itself. I'm going to stop sharing screen and once again open it up for any comments or thoughts. And this time, I definitely would request all of you to switch on your videos and share any thoughts that you have in your head, any questions that you have, and so on. Session. I know it's been a long session. It's not easy to sit through all of this, and it's been pretty much a monologue. I do apologize for that, but I hope some parts of this have been useful. And if you have any questions or comments, please share them. And also sharing through the chat window a link to a feedback form. I definitely request you to click on it if you're not comfortable sharing the feedback here. In the session, please share your feedback through the Google form itself. Manika, I think this session has been recorded.
Yes, yes.
So I will also share with you the PDFs of the presentations that I have
Okay,
made
sure,
and
Ramya.
share
Sure.
that with them as well.
Sure.
Once again, do share your feedback. I don't know how many of you are aware, but I am the customer success for Assam Downtown. So I've been working with the faculty here for a long time, since August, since we signed the partnership. I also interact regularly with Jyotishman, and he was very particular that we use this partnership to build the digital learning capability in faculty. So I'm really glad that we were able to interact today. And if you have any thoughts on what further support you might need or what kind of inputs would help you, then either through Manika or through Jyotishman, please feel free to share those with me.
Sure, sure, Ramya.
All right.
Thank you very much,
everyone.
Ramya. Thank you, faculty members, for the joining. Thank you, Ramya. See you soon again.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.